All right. I know no more boring hunting videos, but I got to talk about this because it might help somebody or give them an idea and make them more successful. So please forgive the popcorn sound because it's raining pretty hard here. And we'll talk about that weather in a minute. But hunting spot number one, I'm very blessed to have that spot. I'm very blessed to hunt it, and it's yielded good deer throughout the years. And, you know, after the processing of the last deer I had taken, you know, portioned it out, gave it to the landowner, and even gave it to a family member that did a bang up job, man, on, you know, being very versatile with deer meat and making some really good stuff with it. You know, you can start seeing the benefits and the payoff. The payoff for all your hard work, for all the time you sit in the stand. You know, I fed a family, fed my family, and then let a family member get creative and be successful in making really good dishes. So, I mean, it's beneficial. Hunting spot number one, I left 2 cameras there. I went and picked up the footage today, and this is what you're going to see. Hunting spot number one yields a lot of deer at times. More deer than you can count on your fingers and toes. Other times, there's nothing to be had. What I wanted to do specifically in this spot is to make these deer stay. When the ag fields get cut down, the weather comes in, I wanted these deer to stick around. I needed them to stick around and know that there's a food source there later in the year, so you don't have to travel. You can just go to your bedding spots around the way there, and you can still come to, you know, my spot and get something to eat, especially times I'm not in the stand, which is a lot because of work. But in the end, I mean, I think I created a little bit of a dough factory there at the first part, but then it started to level out. Taking a couple of does is not going to hurt you. It's only going to balance out your doe and buck ratios. That's very important when you look at it. If you have a ton of does on your property, you're probably not going to see a ton of bucks until the rut. And, you know, who wants to wait that long to hunt? You know, you want to be in that stand the first crack of light on opening day, you know. So I think I accomplished that a little bit too well, but I think I accomplished that. And plus, it still yielded me meat for the freezer because I harvested 2 does out of that spot. Hunting spot number one, again, before we get to the weather, but hunting spot number one is where I go to spend my buck tag. This is where I know I can shoot a really good buck. It's going to be a quality buck, in my eyes anyways, maybe not in others, but it's going to be a quality buck. And this year, I ended up spending my buck tag in a different spot, unfortunately, but I still shot a really good 11-point deer. So, I mean, it is what it is. And then I had Big Ben coming off the back side of me there, and I got to take a look at him, you know, up close and personal instead of on a camera. It's always great when you see these bucks, you know, in person. You know, kind of stinks sometimes when you burn your buck tag or, you know, you just don't get that really good shot and you might have to wait, you know, and hopefully, you know, he comes back the next day or the day after that. But watching the amount of bucks that I've seen here, even bucks that have already lost an antler, I don't know if it's due to fighting, but I guarantee you on some of the footage you can see some does running and there's a buck with his nose to the ground. So I know the second rut is taking place and some of these yearlings have come into heat in my area. Unfortunately, I'm tagged out. I mean, I could get another doe tag, but unfortunately I don't have the freezer space to house that. So that's just the problem that I have now, just not enough room. Maybe that will change in the future. Bonus antlerless quota is kind of wishy-washy at most. You know, disease in some spots will really create awareness to the DNR, and you know they'll start dropping the quotas and things like that. But that's all politicking. But I'm going to tell you, man, I'm very excited. I'm very proud of myself for making the spot what it is, you know, this year, to hopefully making it better next year. And that's one of my goals here. Seeing these deer, they're very, very healthy. Here in Northwest Indiana right now, we shouldn't be having all this rain and these modest temperatures. The El Nino has come in and really pushed a lot of warm air. For crying out loud, it's going to be 53 on Christmas Day. Usually we have a white Christmas and it's really cold. That's one of the things that I see that these deer are not having to deal with right now, is very, very brutal cold temperatures, blizzard conditions, and a lot of snow. Hasn't been that. It's been rainy. Grasses are still being kept green. there's still a lot of food sources out there if you look at it. I mean, going back in there and retrieving the camera footage, there still was a lot of acorns on the ground that aren't covered by snow, where they're going to have to try and, you know, scratch and claw to get to them. You know, it's still there, it's still accessible. So, I mean, looking at it that way, you know, these deer are pretty healthy. And some of these deer are pretty big, and they're bigger than the one that I tagged on the December, what was it, December 13th day. So, I mean, you got to look at it. It looks promising for next year. I think I've really put myself on a good path to become successful and to hold bucks. Holding bucks on your property is really hard to do, because these deer, they wander. They'll go up to 2 to 3 miles just to find what they're looking for. And if you start creating that area, and you start, you know, really maturing the area that you're hunting, and putting things in there where they don't have to go a long way, that they know they can go there and they can get whatever the source is, whether it's food, water, or something just to munch on, you know, you're going to be doing a good job. And I think I'm doing that. Yeah, some of these bucks aren't huge, and I'll roll one in here. Remember that 4-point I passed really early in the season? He came right up there. There he is, man, in the daylight. Now, if he can kind of finagle his way like a certain somebody we know, and kind of stay out of the daylight, he might have a really good chance here coming up in the next few months to, you know, get on and, you know, survive the winter and come into spring, and we can see where he's at if he stays there. Keeping those bucks to a core area is the goal. And he looks really good. He looks really healthy. Like, all these deer have not lost a whole lot of weight. Again, it hasn't been really cold. There's no snow, and we don't have freezing temperatures. So they're not burning a ton of energy because it's 50-something degrees outside. I think that has a lot to do with, you know, even hunters in my area that are not being so much successful and still haven't punched a tag, is because the weather is so wonky right now that deer aren't going to be moving in 60-degree weather in the middle of the day. You know, if they are, they're going to stay pretty close to home. But when we start getting those temperatures and that dramatic shift in the winter months, you know, then you see a lot more movement. But we just haven't had that this year, so those deer aren't wandering as far as they have in previous years. So hopefully that will change a little bit next year. Some people like it like this. I'm not a big fan of it. But it just makes it harder. But I see that as one of the biggest contributing factors. And again, these deer are really looking healthy. They're not looking lean. They're, you know, the bucks aren't looking beat down and kind of, you know, scrawny, because they've been chasing and burning a lot of energy. You know, there's tons of energy to still go around because nothing's, you know, died off from the coldness. So that's something to keep in mind. But it looks pretty good for next year. I'm very excited about this adventure that I'm going to go on for another year. And I will tell you this, man. Boy, this spot is a temptation. And the temptation is turkey. And this spot has a ton of turkey in it right now. And I've really neglected to buy a turkey tag because I haven't been successful. This will be the 6th year that, you know, because I hunted spring turkey and I wasn't successful this year. And, you know, maybe it'll come through, but I still haven't gotten to the point where I'm going to buy another turkey tag yet. But boy, this place makes me want to buy one real quick. I've seen them in person and they keep on showing up. Just got to pick the right day and have the right tag in my pocket. But hunting spot number 1 looks really promising for next year. Scrapes are being used again. There's a lot of communication going on from deers because they're hitting the rubs. You know, they're hitting the scrapes, and they're really figuring out who's in the area. So hopefully these deer will stick around, and, you know, they get tagged. They get tagged. You know, that's just the way it goes. But if they do make it through here, it's going to be really exciting, especially for these bucks, to see what they turn out to be next year, and the elusive big guy. So we'll have to wait and see about him. But thank you for watching all the hunting videos. There'll be a couple of squirrel hunting videos. I went squirrel hunting today. Got me a new tail up here. So we got that going. So we'll do a little bit of squirrel hunting with the suppressor and things like that. With all that being said, I'd like to thank my old and my new subscribers and just the people that zip through. I greatly do appreciate you guys sticking through here. Hope you enjoyed this year's hunting videos. Wasn't spectacular by any means, but hopefully it gets you motivated so you can go out there and you can stop watching my cringy videos and make your own. With all that, like always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.